So we saw a podcast earlier this week that essentially indicated that it's very difficult and certainly not desirable to use linear rolling shutter in mapping or creating some models. And I think we wanted to respond to that a little bit.
I really think we do. You can get excellent models with the linear rolling shutter. It doesn't have to be a global shutter. Now, I mean, that being said, a global shutter is easier, right? Because you have more options. You can fly a little bit faster.
Sure, it's preferable.
It is preferable. But for the most part,
It's
most
also
drones... Yes,
So
that it is.
How many aircraft are out there that have global shutter? Especially in small format.
Small format, I'd probably say maybe 2 at the most.
So we're going to have some fun here for a second. Up on the screen, you can see a couple of different models. We're seeing these. Are we going to see these in 3D or in 2D?
We're going to see these in 2D right now.
So we've got a couple of different models from a night CSI training that we did. What we'd like you, the viewer, to do is let us know in the comments down below. Let us know which of these was captured with a linear rolling shutter. I kind of want to see if people can detect the difference.
Spot the difference.
Yeah. So what's one of the secrets to dealing with linear rolling shutter?
Well, one of the secrets is just fly slower.
Okay.
Right? You've got several options to fly at a slower speed, so you don't get the weird Xerox effect, right? You're going too fast and you get the streaks, or
Sure.
if you're turning in the middle of a turn, then you've got the circles.
Okay. Right.
But after that, you can, let's see, so Pix4D, one of the primary softwares that we utilize,
Yeah.
it actually has compensation for linear rolling shutter.
All right.
So you can turn that on and through the software.
We'll look at that in just a second. So other things that we can do, of course, is if we're flying in well-lit areas, that will significantly take care of the problem. Another thing that can be done is that we can slow down that shutter. So really, if we're dealing with very high motion and we have very high shutter speeds, that will increase the likelihood of artifacts or challenges with the linear rolling shutter system. Now, I want to point out that linear rolling shutter is not something that is related just to mapping. It's something that we're very concerned with in the video production world as well, where it's actually a bigger problem. And if you have a linear rolling shutter camera, whether it's an aerial camera or whether it's a shoulder mount camera or even a small camera like GoPro, linear rolling shutter can be a problem, especially on fast horizontal pans or anytime we have fast horizontal movement. And so even when the drone is pointing straight down, capturing those nadir shots, the nadir. So when you're capturing those nadir shots, it still is horizontal movement, and so high speed can really create problems for you. So this is one of the things to look at. But let's talk about Pix4D, because I think Pix4D has done an amazing thing with their correction algorithms.
Yes.
So I'm going to throw Pix4D up on the screen here. Whenever you start a new project in Pix4D, like we're doing right now, and you import your images, the first thing we want to do is click on this button here, and this takes us into an area where we can edit the camera. And you'll notice in this drop down right here that we can choose global shutter, which is the default, or linear rolling shutter. Now, one of the things about Pix4D is when we modify the camera that's on this particular aircraft to linear rolling shutter, and in this case we're looking at the Autel Evo, but it'll do the same thing for a Mavic or some of the various unique products, et cetera, Pix4D will remember this setting. And so when we close this menu back down and we come back here to this window, you'll notice there's a little pencil mark next to the camera indicator or the camera model number, and that indicates that you've changed that. And Pix4D will remember that moving forward in the future. And so this is an easy way to get around the rolling shutter issue, because Pix4D is smart enough to know what to do.
Sure.
So where doesn't this algorithm work so well?
There's lots of situations. I'm trying to pick one out of my head.
Well, one of the easy ones is mobile phones. So if you're capturing imagery with a cell phone, for example, Pix4D may not know that particular camera model. If you've got an iPhone camera or you have some of the Samsung cameras, it might work out okay. But if you're using, for example, we noticed my Pixel 3 doesn't come up with anything. I think there were a couple of other cameras that our latest training with one of the police departments, we noticed that it didn't pick up the camera.
A lot of iOS devices.
Yeah,
that were utilized.
Or anybody who's running a custom camera on their aircraft. So, for example, we do know that the Sony action cams come up, but but there's a few of these, off-brand cameras that might not necessarily come up, and that's okay because you can still calibrate for it. It'll still work with best case scenarios. That's really not a big image. So let's flash these two images back up there again. Which of these two images was captured with a camera using linear rolling shutter? Let us know in the comments down below, and we'll come back to this podcast a little bit later on, perhaps next week, and we'll identify which one was captured with a linear rolling shutter. All right, so this gives you a chance to look at it in full screen for a second, and look closely, and let's see if you can figure out which one's which. All right.
Now, keep in mind, both of these images were shot with different ISO factors.
That's true. One was shot at 1800, 1600.
1600. The other was
1200. So there's a value of 400 difference or delta in the two.
Yes.
And we could modify the other one to bring it up to the same exposure, but I think we want to just leave them in the native state.
Yes.
Okay. Great. All right. So as we close out this week, again, leave your comments below about which camera you think captured, which kind of camera you think captured these images that you see below. And we'll look forward to addressing that in a later podcast. Anything else we want to share about linear rolling shutter that I missed?
I think we've pretty much covered all the basics. So it can be utilized, of course, and by all means, check out both of those photos and let us know which one you think is best.
Yep.
Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and.
Yeah, I think I kind of want to end with pointing out that because the vast majority of the cameras that are flying around today are LRS or linear rolling shutter cameras, it would be really unfortunate if you couldn't use them. So hopefully we've dispelled or at least led the path for people to understand that it's a bit of a myth that you can't use a linear rolling shutter. All right, so until next time, our next podcast, fly safe.